Interesting how often that has come up in our conversations, that part of the keys to dealing with all of the challenges we deal with, like one of the answers that comes up consistently is community. And we
Mm-hmm.
often like to talk here too about the relationship between these challenges of our financial realities with mental health. So I'm really interested in your therapy. You talk about having identified this anxiety that was present around financial instability.
Mm-hmm.
And now that you've been like working on that for a while, like identifying it and hopefully succeeding in lessening it, I often find with anxiety, it's like it occupies so much of our minds that when we're able to lessen it, we could just find all this other stuff that's in us. And I wonder, I'm curious if there's anything you can share about what you found after dealing with some of that anxiety, especially as it pertains to your creativity, because so much of your life is being creative.
Absolutely. I will say the immediate aftermath is me sending emails, correspondence, talking to other people became so much easier. So much easier. The I think yes, again, like all this like inward anxiety and like the things we can control. Um, yes, once I was lessening it in even just like tiny areas here and there, uh, I realized how much of that anxiety was like, okay, this email needs to be the best email that's ever written because I only have one shot. It was all these, things I had, learned through like it's do or die, like this, that anxiety of, yeah, it will go away if I don't somehow feel control over this thing that I'm doing. Like I don't. They're lovely. They're perfect. They're wonderful. They're going to email back with the perfect response ever created. But I'm the problem. I need to make the email perfect first. Anyway, so yeah. So once I started working on this in therapy, it was almost like the next week I sent an email to someone I wanted to interview for our YouTube video. And I couldn't believe how much less stressful I literally didn't think about it until afterwards, like, oh my God, like a couple weeks ago I would have not been able to do this. I would have been so wrapped up in my own past fear of, yeah, it just felt so familiar to me that, yeah, breaking it down immediately allowed me to have so much easier time reaching out to people, which again, I very much, connect back to that idea of community and how when we are working ourselves to the bone, when our bodies are literally giving out at the end of the day, you do not have mental space to send an email. Like you don't have space to reach out to the friend you miss, or I didn't. I'm sure there's wonderful people out there who are like,
and
no
it's
matter
a cycle,
what
right? I mean, so
Yes,
it's hard to
yes.
make it stop, because if you're anxious and you can't reach out, then your anxiety increases. Except if you're not as anxious, you can reach out so you can decrease your anxiety. So like, it's just, at what point are you able to interrupt that cycle? Because I know for me around anxiety, what I thought Mike was going to say, and I'm really glad he didn't say this part, because what he had to say was more leans towards the optimism of being able to do something about anxiety. I've often said, like, I think my anxiety is like a balloon, and it just, if I squish one side of it, like it gets bigger on another side. Like if I decrease my anxiety about one thing, then my anxiety about another thing can increase. And my goal is to just have that balloon get smaller, right? I don't know if I'm ever going to completely get rid of my anxiety at all, but just to have the lumps be like a little smaller. But the other thing I wanted to ask about that anxiety piece is you've kind of alluded to this about your work getting better when you have less anxiety around it. So, I think something that's come up for us on the show and something I think about a lot is how much hustling can degrade my work. Like if I am hustling, then I'm not able to put as much of myself into my work. I'm too anxious about people liking it and getting paid for it. But then again, like, how do you get paid for work if you're not hustling? So have you given a lot of thought to that? Like where are you in your ability to like not hustle and be able to focus on the work itself? Or does hustling help you work? Some people, you know what? I should say, I'm speaking for myself. Like there are some people who are like, I need the hustle. I need the deadlines. I need the pressure. I used to think I was that way. This is a part of my age, like speaking here. It's like I used to think that the hustle was helpful, and now I'm not so sure.
Yes. This is, once again, very timely, very apt. I have been undiagnosed ADHD for the most majority of my life. Maybe not so coincidentally, but very coincidentally, around the time I became financially stable is the time that I finally was diagnosed with ADHD. So when I was younger, I've going all the way back to like high school, that is what I used to self-motivate. With ADHD, that is one of the huge roadblocks is self-motivation. It is literally non-existent. When I was about 16, I was diagnosed with depression, which was probably simply my undiagnosed ADHD. And that medication helped a little bit. That was like the first time that I didn't feel the need to, use hustle as an external motivator to do anything. I feel like it's very funny, and especially for ADHD, because self-motivation is such a huge problem. You often see students who are either very detached from school, just like I can't motivate, so how am I going to do this? And there's also the other response, both extremely valid, where it's like, I cannot self-motivate, therefore I will use every single one of these things to be the motivation, which is also not healthy and not absolutely not beneficial, as in the long run whatsoever.
I was gold star, straight A, all the activities, all of the things that I could pile onto my plate, because doing too much felt more comfortable than having any time to myself. Yes. And so and that's one of the things I'm kind of alluding to, is that at 50, that shit stopped working for me. Like it just broke me. And I have had to relearn a lot of skills. So I'm really just asking selfishly. I think I'm not going to speak for Mike, but I feel like a lot of the interviews we're doing, we're just like, come on, tell me how. Tell me how. Tell me how.
It's a huge shift. Well, I think it started to kind of break for me around college. That's when I started. I went to an acting university. It was like very I started, I knew before that, but it started to become very real in a very tangible way that if you give your motivation externally, or if you are relying on other people to be that motivator, for me, it just couldn't, it didn't fit with acting, because I can't give that to someone else. There's no one to give it to. Like, it is just you, and the mindset of, I'd audition for plays, and it would be like, 150 people, students and faculty. And I can't make them the external motivator, because it's not healthy. Like, it's not, that ends up, your machine will fundamentally break down, because it is not your job to make them cast you. It's your job to bring material to life. It's your job to, bring life into a character. It's very, in a way, like, very intimate. And I think that's what I love about it. It's one of the only times I feel extremely focused on something. It's, imagining the circumstances being completely different. So it very quickly started to be like, this is not working. It's not healthy for me to create them as the external motivator. So then, therefore, what do I do? What do I do? And I will say, I don't think that I really found the answer until I got diagnosed and I got the medication that my brain severely needed. Even through college, for, essays and stuff, I was still, I almost did like the pendulum swing. I still had okay grades, but I became the student that would stay up all night doing the essay the night before, because that gave me the most motivation. It was like waiting till the last minute gave me the, the dopamine hit that I needed to complete this essay, to finish this class. And that was extremely not healthy. My body did not appreciate that, even though I could pull it off because I was young. So yes, it really was not until I was properly medicated that, one, it was a huge relief, because, the whole, up until that point, I was like, I still feel like something's off. Like, I still feel something is wrong. Like, I know this is unhealthy, but I cannot get my brain to do what I'm seeing my classmates doing. I cannot get it. The idea of self-motivation had been such a foreign concept to me that, until I, again, had the proper medication, was the first time.
When was that?
It was about probably 4 years ago at this point.
Oh, interesting coincidence as far as your financial stability goes.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, and also to relate it back to that, that was when I recognized that so much of this, like, go, this fight or flight, or whatever it was directly correlated to my undiagnosed ADHD. Again, it was go, because that is what I had used up until this point to do anything, to finish school, to graduate, to get enough money to, pay rent. That is what I relied on. And yeah, it's not, it's the tools I had at the time, but I became, when I finally got what my brain needed, I was like, oh my God. Like, I put myself through a lot, because for a lot of reasons, but part of it being I didn't have the brain space to feel like another way was even possible. And so, yeah, connecting that back to like school, I knew that external motivation, especially in the creative field, is extremely fraught. Even more so in Hollywood, where, now it's like legit casting directors that you have to not care. You have to just not care about like the outcome. And so, all of that together was kind of like this pushed journey into being like, okay, but what actually is motivating? And yeah, that to me is storytelling. You know, it is getting to disappear into a story, into completely different circumstances. This like wonderful all-consuming thing that happens when you're writing or acting, where yeah, it feels almost like out of body, at whatever, you know, you're creating a completely different place for people to go and explore. And so, yeah, that became my biggest motivation, is that part of that part of the creativity that is so fun and fulfilling. And then, yeah, it's so much easier to balance life and work when, yeah, you have given your brain the juice to, you know, be able to feel that there's a separation. You know,
I got another tell me how.
Yeah.
Not necessarily for me, but I know a lot of people with ADHD, and I feel like a good amount of them are very interested in content creation as a way to make a living, because a lot of them tend to have just a lot of ideas. There's like a lot of creative impulses, a lot of realities that they can see and imagine. But many of them have a hard time like finishing things and executing. So just, you know, I think you're probably like an inspiration for a lot of people who might find themselves in that position. And I wonder what sort of insight you have on, given that YouTube is a completely open sandbox and you could choose anything to do. Like, how do you pick which idea to execute?
That is a great question. I would say, I think, and again, this is interesting. Okay, so if anyone is interested, I would say go back, kind of look at my videos in a row, because you might quickly find there is no rhyme or reason. There's no rhyme or reason. There are a couple series that I started back when I was still very like not financially secure. So I was like, okay, I will have a refillable idea that I can plug ideas into. This was my like, you know, trying to problem solve how to help make it, you know, viable. And you know, I'm not able to keep a series going, you know. But I will say, I think part of that is, and again, this was very much like kind of connected to my background in art and performance, is that letting go of the idea of, I want to say perfection, but I wouldn't go as far to say,
yeah.
Oh, whoops.
There was a little microphone issue.
Are you touching your mic?
Oops. Yeah, I did.
Okay.
Yeah, I was like, what? Oh, I did. I will go back to, yes. So it connected to, you know, like creativity and the creative outputs, letting go of the idea of perfection. But I would even say letting go of the idea that one idea is better than the other. I think that is honestly too much pressure to put on yourself. I think getting a list of your ideas and picking the best idea, I think that's already like too hard. I think that's too hard. I think pick the one that sounds the most fun. Like what, you know, using fun as your metric, again, I guess in lack of an external motivator, I would often rely on, okay, well, just which one is the funnest? Because I know that's the one I'm at least going to return to the most. And to me, that has been a wonderful guiding light, you know, and that means, yeah, like dropping a series if something else is more fun. Sure, it would make more sense for you to continue that series. But no, this other thing is more fun. So I will do that. Those other ideas will still be there. So I think it reminds me of like writing the perfect email. Like, I think if you start, you know, like you there are so many small things that I have gotten stuck on that I could foresee. Yeah, it seemed like a huge decision. And in a way is a huge decision. But I think those are the kind of things that slowly you have to, or I had to give up. Yeah, in order for the benefit of, creativity. Yeah, there's a lot of, there's a lot of things to give up, but I would say as much as you can, give up the hard stuff that impedes your work, the self-inflicted. Mm-hmm.
What I hear you saying that I think is a really helpful takeaway is don't punish yourself for not following through on something, and that it's okay to let go of stuff that's not working. And
absolutely,
because I can also get, I have not been diagnosed with ADHD, but I've been kind of treating myself as though I might have it, in part because I'm perimenopausal. And apparently the hormone stew of perimenopause can resemble what they call like pregnancy brain, which is like an ADHD kind of state. And I also have all these hacks of like, I'm going to invent a series, or I'm going to invent like a really specific newsletter, a really like hyper focused newsletter, so that if I do it, like I know what I need to write. And I have like what feels like 1,000 things that I started and didn't finish, and I can really beat myself up over those. But what I hear you saying is a reminder to like, it's just leave it, just like let's leave it behind. Anil Dash, who's a technology guy who also does a lot of writing, has a presentation. He's also like the world's #1 Prince fan, which is a huge competition. So he's really, trust me, like up there. And he does a presentation about how many projects Prince didn't finish. Like, and also like other tech people who have like all these like half finished things. And it's just a really wonderful reminder of like, we only see the stuff, when someone becomes very successful, we only see the things that they finished, right? Like we don't see their great unfinished projects. So think about like all the different false starts as just not false starts, but just starts.
Absolutely. The other thing, and the start, I was just gonna say, like, to underline that, the starting is the important thing. The doing is the important thing. The doing of it is much more important than, And
you were still doing, like I've come across the metaphor that I've decided I like for now is you're always on a road trip, even if you wind up turning around at some point. Like if you get lost, like that didn't mean you stopped being on the road trip. It just means you got lost for a little bit, or like you took a detour, or you decided to visit some place that you didn't stay. But that doesn't mean like you stopped the trip and then the next thing you do counts as a new one. So it's all just part of like getting someplace.
Absolutely. And in the meantime, you read a bunch of new road signs that you didn't even know you would come across. I do also just want to add that also a big part of, helping deconstruct these thoughts and ideas is disability advocacy. I feel like I'm a newbie baby to it. I simply just ingest what other smart people have to say from, their own experiences. But, there's a huge insight into, having these things that are out of our control, things that are, that are just realities of our body that, a lot of us get to take for granted. And listening to people talk about their own experiences, people talking about their disabilities has been such a balm for the soul and mind and anxiety. Because there's a lot of things that we beat ourselves up for that is completely unnecessary and frankly, just imposed in a late stage capitalist society that doesn't actually make sense for human beings.